Hello, welcome back to my channel. Today I am doing all of the books that I read in 2019. I read some books I absolutely loved this year and I read some books I was like, not too sure about. I love reading and in 2020 I want to do much more videos about reading and books and stuff like that because I know so many of you also love reading. Today I'm talking about all the books I read in 2019 starting from the very beginning. Just wanted to say that I use Goodreads to track all the books I'm reading. I really like it because I am a physical book person. I'm really not a Kindle person. I've never tried reading on a Kindle, maybe I would like it, but I really love going into a bookshop and choosing a book and reading the whole book. I just really love that. So I don't think I'd ever really be a Kindle person, maybe I would. So I like to be able to track all the books I've read and what I'm currently reading and stuff like that on an app. And so this one's really good because it tells you what percentage you are of the way through each book that you're reading. It does say that on Kindles, so that's why I really like this. So you can like update what page you're on of each book that you're reading and it'll tell you exactly what percentage you're on of each book. And then also it's telling me all the books I read this year. Also you can set a reading challenge every year. My reading challenge this year was 15 books and I think I read 20. Next year my reading challenge is 25 books. So I'm going to try and maybe read more and more every year. But yeah, just wanted to mention that's the app I use to keep track of my books. I'm going to try and zoom through all of these books so this video isn't too long. So, getting started, the first book I read was Everything I Know About Love by Dolly Alderton. There was loads of different aspects of this book, but the biggest aspect for me was the relationship women have with each other and the friendships women have with each other. It talked about breakups, her friends' breakups, her breakups, dating, loads of different things like that, but it was very funny. It wasn't like doom and gloom and stuff like that. It was very funny and I really liked that she was so positive about female friendships because I feel like that's something that we're lacking in media and books and film and stuff like that. So I really enjoyed that. I think I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. The second book I read was My Thoughts Exactly by Lily Allen. Again, I think this was a Christmas present and obviously Lily Allen's biography. I really enjoyed this. There was some aspects that I was like, I really liked how honest she was, especially about mental health. She talks a lot about her mental health in this, very honestly, and her relationships with men and stuff like that. I really enjoyed this, but I think there was aspects where she was kind of talking about how she wasn't that privileged growing up or how she wasn't as rich as people thought, etc. And I was like, don't know how I feel about that. So that was my only like question mark of it, but I really enjoyed this book. I think I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars. I gave this like a 3.5 out of 5 because I did really enjoy it. The next book I read was Notes on a Nervous Planet by Matt Haig. Matt Haig is probably one of my favourite humans, never mind authors. I absolutely adore Matt Haig. He writes about mental health and this book in particular was about anxiety and panic, which is why I really enjoyed it. He also wrote The Reason to Stay Alive, which I really enjoyed, but he talked more about depression in that, which I don't suffer with. So this one, there were so many moments, I read this in the bath, there were so many moments I was like, I actually would click my fingers when it was really good. I was really enjoyed this book. I gave it a 5 out of 5 stars. I would give it more if I could. Absolutely recommend this book if you haven't read it. It is absolutely amazing. He's just a genius. He's just a genius. The next book I read was Born a Crime by Trevor Noah. I absolutely adored this book as well. It was hilarious. If you don't know, Trevor Noah I think he's a presenter and stuff like that in America, but his story is that he was born mixed race during the apartheid, so he was born a crime. His mother was black and his father was white, I think, and it was just about his experiences of growing up being not black and not white and kind of just being different from everybody else, and it was hilarious. It was absolutely amazing. I absolutely adored this book so much. In fact, could it be one of my favourite reads of 2019? So if you've not read this one, definitely give it a read. Pretty sure I gave this 5 out of 5 stars. Next book I read was The House Swap. I don't really know the story of how this book came into my hands. I don't know if I bought it. I think I bought it in Sainsbury's actually. I don't know. It was one of those books that I felt like the writing wasn't really my favourite if I'm honest, but the storyline kept you gripped and kept you going to keep reading. I'll read you the blurb quickly. When Caroline and Francis receive an offer of a house swap, they jump at the chance to have a week away from home. After the difficulties of the past few years, they've worked hard to rebuild their marriage for their son's sake. Now they want to reconnect as a couple. On arrival, they find a house that's stark and sinister in its emptiness. Then gradually Caroline begins to uncover some signs of life, signs of her life. The flowers in the bathroom and the music in the CD player, might seem innocent to her husband, but to her they aren't anything but. It seems the person they have swapped with is someone she used to know, someone she's desperate to leave in her past, but that person is now in her home and wants to make sure she'll never forget. I remember, I read this book at the beginning of the year, I think, and I remember the first half I was kind of like, come on, get to the point, and the second half I was like, oh my god, they really got to the point. But yeah, I think this book could have been quicker to get to the point. I think I gave this like a 3 out of 5 stars because it was very good, kept you very gripped, but the writing could have been better. The next book I read was How to Be a Grown-Up by Daisy Buchanan. This was kind of like a self-helpy kind of book for women, really, where she talked about loads of different things, and I think it could be a good book for certain people. I found it a little bit wishy-washy, I think. It wasn't really delving in really deep. It was kind of like surface stuff. There's loads of different chapters on confidence, friends, surviving work, being social, washing your hair, panic attacks, the internet, sex, loads of different things. I just felt it was a little bit surfacey, and I gave this one, again, a 3 out of 5 stars. The next book I read was Feminists Don't Wear Pink and Other Lies. I absolutely love this book. This book is by Scarlett, but there's, I don't know how many different women have written excerpts in it. It doesn't say. I would say there was probably like 30, 40, 50 women that did a story in here, and there was so many different kinds of stories from different kinds of women. So women of all different backgrounds wrote a piece in here, which I thought was really interesting. So it really gave you an insight into what feminism means to loads of different kinds of people. I remember Keira Knightley's actually being my favourite. A lot of the women in here are famous women. I remember Keira Knightley's being my favourite, and I think hers was about birth, and I just never had heard somebody talk about birth in that way before. So I absolutely loved this book. It really, really was. I've read a lot of feminism books, and some of them are a bit like, I don't know, some of them I've just been a bit like droning on, or just things that I'm not as passionate about maybe. But this obviously was great because there were so many different aspects of feminism. They talked about so many different issues. So I really, really enjoyed this, and I think I give this a 5 out of 5. The next book I read was The Time Traveller's Wife. As you can see, it is very loved. I got this in a charity shop. I absolutely loved this book. I didn't think I would love it as much as I did because I was very into this year reading non-fiction. But this was definitely my favourite fiction I read. It was absolutely amazing. The writing was absolutely amazing, and it really, really just kept me wanting to read and read and read and read. I absolutely really, really loved this. Everybody knows what this is about, so I'm not going to explain that, but loved this so much. The next book I read was When Breath Becomes Air. This was about a surgeon who actually becomes ill himself, and how he deals with that and stuff like that. I really enjoyed this book, however, it was very, very hyped on social media. That's why I got the book, and when I saw it I just decided to pick it up and read it. It was a really good read. There was definitely parts of it that I was like, oh my god, this is really sad and amazing, and the writing was absolutely amazing, but I did just find it slightly overhyped. So I think I gave this a 4 out of 5. No, I gave it a 3 out of 5 apparently. I'd say it was definitely worth a read though. I just don't think it was as good as it was being made out to be. The next book I read was Normal People by Sally Rooney. I got this book because it was like the book of the month or whatever in Morrison, so I got it. But I did read Conversation with Friends and I didn't really enjoy that book. So I kind of had low expectations of this, and it was amazing. Really, really made you feel for the people that were involved. I'm going to read you the blurb. Connell and Marianne grew up in the same small town in the west of Ireland, but the similarities end there. In school, Connell is popular and well liked, while Marianne is a loner. But when the two strike up a conversation, awkward but electrifying, something life-changing begins. It's a story of mutual fascination, friendship and love. It takes us from that first conversation to the years beyond, in the company of two people who try to stay apart but find they can't. I just thought it was very, very, very unique, and not a love story that you've read before. And it wasn't really, like, it sounds in the blurb like a really like romantic book. It wasn't at all. It really, really wasn't. It was actually pretty grim in parts. Really, really quite grim in parts. But I really, really enjoyed this, and I think it could be relatable to most people, this story. Not in its content, but in the way that the characters feel. So I really enjoyed this, and I gave this a 4 out of 5. The next book I read was The Colour Purple. Oh my god, I can't believe I've not read this book before now, and I'm so glad I didn't have to read this book for English or anything like that, because I know a lot of people have to read The Colour Purple for English, and when you have to read a book for English, it kind of ruins it because you have to look at the symbolism and all that stuff. but I read it and I didn't really know that much about it before I went into it, and I'm sure a lot of you do know what The Colour Purple is about, but I think I was kind of put off by the fact it was a classic, so I thought the language would be difficult to understand, and classics I'm always just a bit turned off by, but this one was absolutely amazing. I just loved the character development of the main character. It was just absolutely amazing. I can't recommend The Colour Purple enough, and I actually have lent it to 2 different friends since then who both felt the exact same way about it, and they were like, oh my god, why the hell haven't I read this book before? So yeah, absolutely amazing, 5 out of 5 stars. Moving on to a book that I unfortunately really did not enjoy is The Psychology of Time Travel. When I started reading it, I thought I would really enjoy it. It's about 4 female scientists and about like their discovery of time travel and how they do it and stuff like that, but I just felt it was really boring. It just kind of, there wasn't really a story, like I just really did not enjoy this, and I had to force my way through this, and at the end of the book I was like, thank god I got through that. I really didn't enjoy it. I think I gave it a 2 out of 5 stars. Just wouldn't really recommend this one. This was another book I got from a charity shop, I think, and It's Good As Gone. Again, I didn't really know how I'd feel about this book. I didn't really know anything about it. I'd never heard of it. Just one of those books you pick up in a charity shop, and I really, really enjoyed it. There was parts at the beginning, again, where I felt like it was a bit slower, a bit like dry, but then when it got into it, it was like, oh my god, really, really good. I think, again, the writing probably could have been a little bit better. It wasn't exactly my writing style, or the style that I enjoy, but the book definitely kept you reading because you were like, what the hell is going to happen? I'll read you a bit of the blurb. 8 years ago, 13-year-old Julie Whittaker was kidnapped from her bedroom in the middle of the night. In the years since, her family have papered over the cracks of the grief while hoping against hope that Julie is still alive. And then one night the doorbell rings. A young woman calling herself Julie claims to have come home, but certain things don't add up. Julie's story doesn't quite ring true, and before long the family are in danger of being torn apart all over again. Really enjoyed this, and I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars. The next book I read was Animal by Sara Pascoe, and honestly, I read 2 books this year by Sara Pascoe. I think she only has 2 books out as well, and I'm in love with this woman. I am absolutely in love with this woman. She talks about in Animal the female body and the biology of the female body and all that kind of stuff, and makes it really funny and interesting to read while being really, really informative. Like, you read her books and you feel so much more intelligent, and you're not. You're just reading a Sara Pascoe book, but she makes it really easy to understand. She talks about sex and sexuality and periods and all that kind of stuff very openly, and just really, I think she did really change my outlook on a lot of things that the female body goes through, and just made me so much more aware of the biology of the female body and the reasons why we have these things and the reasons why we feel certain ways. I absolutely love this book, and I love Sara Pascoe so much, so I gave that 5 out of 5. The next book I read was The Man Who Didn't Call by Rosie Walsh. I got this book and I was like, why did I pick this book up? It's really not my kind of thing. But when I actually read it, I was like, oh, this is very interesting. And the twist is a really good twist in this story. I'm going to read you a little bit about it. Imagine you meet a man, spend 6 glorious days together and fall in love, and it's mutual. You've never been so certain of anything, so when he leaves for a long booked holiday and promises to call from the airport, you have no cause to doubt him, but he doesn't call. Your friends tell you to forget him, but you know they're wrong. Something must have happened. There must have been a reason for his silence. That's the kind of premise of the book, but it's much more than that when you actually read it. And I found it really, really interesting, and you get to know the characters in a different way. And like I said, the twist in the story is something you really don't see coming. So I would recommend this book as a kind of easy holiday read. I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars. Not the best book I've ever read, but definitely an alright one. The next book I read was Poverty Safari by Darren mcgarvey. Absolutely loved this book. Understanding the anger of Britain's underclass. Darren mcgarvey is from Scotland, he's from Glasgow, and he just writes really, really honestly and eloquently about growing up working class and all the things that come along with that and what it means. He talks about so many things that really, really actually opened my eyes to a lot of things. A little bit in the back is Darren mcgarvey has experienced poverty and its devastating effects firsthand. He knows why people from deprived communities all around Britain feel angry and unheard, and he wants to explain. So he invites you to come on a safari of sorts, but not the kind where the wildlife is surveyed from a safe distance. This book takes you inside the experience of poverty and to show you, and to show how the pressures really feel and how hard their legacy is to overcome, arguing that both the political left and right misunderstand poverty, and it is actually, as it is actually lived. mcgarvey sets out what everybody, including himself, could do to change things. That's what I really took away from this book. Was it's not about the left fixing things, it's not about the right fixing things. And if we don't work together as human beings, we are never going to get where we want to be. I think it's really easy for us to blame a specific party and why we still have poverty and why we still have people growing up in really horrific conditions in this country. But if we don't listen to each other and work together as human beings and actually listen to the people that are going through the thing that we're guessing what they're going through, we're not ever going to change. And I think he was saying that he got a lot of people that would ask him about what it was like growing up in poverty in Glasgow, and he would tell them, and as soon as he started to give a solution, or as soon as he started to give his thoughts on why people are in the way their position they are, or as soon as he started to say, this could help this situation, I've been in this situation, I know it could help, the camera would cut off and people weren't interested. It was like they were interested in poverty porn. They were interested in his horrible, harrowing, sad story, and they wanted to get a glimpse of it and then be like, oh, the poor guy. But they weren't interested in listening to what he had to say. He was a very intelligent, very, very, very intelligent man. But they weren't interested in hearing how intelligent he was at all. They were only interested in his sob story, and that was it. So I just found this book absolutely really fascinating and really opened my eyes as a human being. And just, I think this is a really essential read for everybody. And yeah, obviously a 5 out of 5 stars because I just love this so much. The next book I read was from my gal, Sara Pascoe, Sex, Money, Power. Absolutely love this book. Very, very, very funny. She just is really funny. And she doesn't shy away from talking about things, but she's so clever and she makes you feel so much more clever. So the blurb reads, deciding to confront her fear of the male libido, Sara Pascoe turns her attention to the things that really matter to humans, delving into such questions as sex. Why don't people care about the welfare of the people they masturbate to? Power. Why is there such stigma around those who work in the sex industry? Money. Why do some women still want men to buy them dinner? Really just adored this book again. She really delves into loads and loads and loads of things that we might not always think of, and when we do think of, we might be misinformed about. So really enjoyed this book again. The last book I read this year is It's About Bloody Time Period. If I'm honest, I thought I would enjoy this book a lot more than I did. I thought that Emma Barnett really talked about some really great things, but I thought she talked about things in a pretty privileged way. That's what I got from that. She was talking about, like, there was one part where she was like, basically saying like, oh, I understand why they'd have these problems in Africa and India. Obviously very problematic thing to say. Yeah. There was just loads of moments like that where I found it quite like, maybe you should have been more informed about things before you wrote this book. I don't know. I think I'd give this a 2 out of 5. There was definitely a lot in this that I was like, that I didn't know before and that I found very interesting and that were very important, but I think she missed out a massive chunk of people. And maybe she was talking a lot about period poverty and stuff, but she didn't actually talk to that many people that were experiencing it. She kind of talked about the stats about those people. I don't know, I felt like there was a much better way to do this book. That was my opinion. So that is all the books I read in 2019 and my honest opinions about them. I am not very good at talking about my opinions on books because half of them I've kind of forgotten because it was at the very beginning of the year. These are all the books I read in 365 days, so obviously the books I read more recently I remember a bit more. But yeah, these were all the books I read this year, and I hope that some of them you'll give a chance. The Matt Haig one especially, both of Sara Pascoe's books were absolutely amazing, and the Darren mcgarvey one, Poverty Safari, they were all really great. I learned a lot from them. So yeah, thank you very much for watching this video and I will see you soon. Bye!